thưa các cô chú, các anh chị và các bạn, trong cộng đồng người Việt tại Hoa Kỳ thì những thế hệ sau này có người Việt hội nhập, có những người thành công trên con đường học vấn trở thành bác sĩ, luật sư, có những người thành công trên con đường kinh doanh và trên con đường về quân đội. Thì chúng ta biết là người Việt mà thành công nhất là thiếu tướng Lương Xuân Việt. Thiếu tướng Xuân Việt, chuẩn tướng Lương Xuân Việt là bây giờ được vinh danh là thiếu tướng, đã có một cuộc phỏng vấn vào ngày 18 tháng 5 vừa qua về trải nghiệm và câu chuyện hành trình từ một cậu bé tị nạn 9 tuổi gốc Việt để trở thành một thiếu tướng, là một người châu Á, người gốc Á thành công nhất, và một người gốc Việt thành công nhất trên con đường binh nghiệp, trở thành thiếu tướng trong quân đội mạnh nhất thế giới là quân đội Hoa Kỳ. Thì trở lại ông là được lên chức là thiếu tướng, được Thượng viện Hoa Kỳ chấp nhận vinh danh thêm thiếu tướng Major General vào năm 2017, và bây giờ ông đang thực thi ở Nhật Bản. Và đây là cuộc phỏng vấn, mời các bạn xem cuộc phỏng vấn đối với thiếu tướng Lương Xuân Việt tại US Army, trên Facebook của US Army. Viet Di Tru xin lược dịch để cho các bạn tham khảo một gương mặt gốc Việt thành công tại Hoa Kỳ trên con đường binh nghiệp, và giới trẻ gốc Việt tại Hoa Kỳ có thể lấy đó là một tấm gương để học hỏi, để phát triển sự nghiệp theo con đường binh nghiệp hoặc bất cứ ngành nghề nào. Và đó cũng là một tấm gương để mình học hỏi và nói theo. Mời các bạn xem.
To the Meet Your Army virtual engagement hosted by
xin chào
Army
các bạn.
Outreach
Hôm
Division
nay
in
tôi
support
rất là hân
of
hạnh được
U.S. Army Public
điều hành
Affairs.
cái buổi phỏng
I'm
vấn
Major Pete
với
Nguyen, and it is
tướng
my
cao cấp
absolute
nhất
pleasure to
gốc
serve as
Việt
your moderator today.
trong quân đội Hoa
As a
Kỳ.
Vietnamese American, I'm
Như là
especially
một
excited
người
to
Mỹ
take
gốc
part in
Việt,
today's
tôi
discussion,
rất
as I'm
là vui
joined
mừng
by the highest
và hãnh diện
ranking Vietnamese
được giới
American
thiệu
officer in the
tướng cao
United
cấp
States Army,
gốc Việt
Major
Lương Xuân
General
Việt.
Viet Luong. General Luong fled the Vietnam War at the age of 9 with his family and arrived
Tướng Xuân
in
Việt qua
America
định cư Mỹ
as a
vào những
refugee.
năm
Today
80
he's going to share
với
his
gia đình,
remarkable journey from landing on
và
the deck of
ông có
the
một hành
USS
trình
Hancock
từ một
as a
người tị
frightened
nạn
9-year-old boy
gốc
to
Việt
leading
để thành công
US
và
Army
trở thành
Japan
một trong những người gốc
as,
Việt
as
cao
an
cấp
Army
nhất lãnh
Major
đạo
General.
trong quân
Over the
đội
next
Hoa
30
Kỳ.
minutes or so, General Luong will share his experiences and thoughts
Và
with
tướng
us
Lương
as we
sẽ
learn
chia
more
sẻ những
about
kinh nghiệm
his
của
Army
ông
story.
đối với câu
Regardless
chuyện
of
của ông.
where you are joining us from or how you found us, thank you for watching this timely discussion. So, without any further ado, sir, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Cảm ơn
Would you
ngài
like
rất
to
nhiều
provide
vì
any
đã tham
opening
dự
remarks to
buổi
everyone
phỏng vấn
joining
ngày hôm
us?
nay.
Yes, sure. Ohayou gozaimasu from Japan, and it's
Tôi
greetings
đang
to all of you
đang
dialing
hành
in.
quân tại
It's my great honor to
Nhật
be here
Bản.
today.
Là điều
And first and foremost, I
hãnh
will
diện
tell
của
you
tôi trong
that,
buổi phỏng
you
vấn
know,
ngày
as
hôm
you
nay
may have
đối với
seen on the
bạn.
brochures and maybe my bio, I'm listed as a first in many categories. However, from my foxhole, I will tell you I'm simply just a soldier, like many of you, who's trying to do his duty to the
rất là khiêm
fullest.
tốn, nói là
I would
tôi cũng
always
như là một người
also say
lính trong
that
quân đội Hoa
I
Kỳ
would
như
not be
bạn,
sitting here
như các bạn phục vụ trong quân
without,
ngũ
you know, the
tại Hoa
great
Kỳ.
efforts of my soldiers, non-commissioned officers, and mentors along the way. And I
Như
also
là một
owe
người
a
hướng
great
dẫn, là
debt
một người
to my
thầy
parents
đối
and
với
my
những
sisters for their
đối với những
sacrifices
người
and enduring
lính.
support from my
Tôi
wife
hướng dẫn
Kim
họ
and my
trong quân
family.
đội
But
và
in
những
any
người cấp
case,
dưới.
it's great to be here. It's good to see some of you.
Sir, thank you so much. I recently listened to your NPR interview from 2015 when you oversaw the training of Afghan troops near Kandahar. In that interview, you detail your journey as a
Trong một
Vietnamese
cuộc
refugee
trong một
to
cuộc phỏng vấn vào
U.S. Army
năm
general.
2015,
I can hear the
ngài
emotion in your
có
voice
buộc
as you
phỏng vấn
describe
với
the
báo
way
chí
you
và
felt
nói về hành
45
trình
years
của
ago.
ông
When I
và
hear your voice
để
shakes, it
một
makes
câu
me
chuyện
think
một
about my
người
own
tị nạn
family
trở thành một tướng
and what it
gốc
must have
Việt.
been like for all Vietnamese people who followed a similar path to the U.S. Can you tell us about your journey leaving Vietnam from when your
Ông có thể
father
kể một chút
held a family meeting
cái
to
hành trình của ông,
the
thành
way you
công của
felt
ông
when
từ
you
một người
landed
tị
on the
nạn để trở
deck
thành một tướng cấp
of the
cao nhất
USS Hancock?
gốc Việt.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. And just
Dĩ
to
nhiên
be
rồi.
honest, you know, the scars from that event are indelible, and that's why it's hard for me to be able to maintain, you know, or control my emotions when I have to retell it. I don't like to retell
Tại
that
một cái sự
story
kiện báo
all
chí
that
đó thì
much,
tôi đã kể câu chuyện
but
của
I
tôi
think
và
it's a
tôi
story
không
that
kiềm chế
needs
được
to
cái
be
cảm xúc của
told
tôi
because
nói về
it's
cái hành
part
trình
of
của tôi.
who we are as Americans, and it's a
À,
story of our nation. And so I have
không
told
kể
that
bạn là người
story
ai thì đây là một câu
a
chuyện về
few
đất nước của chúng
times,
ta,
including,
trong nước
you know,
mà
when I was
mọi người
in
đều có cơ
Canada,
hội.
and I was actually probed on that story. So it goes back to February or March 1975, and I remember that very vividly because it was
Trở lại
such
năm
a
1975,
cataclysmic event in my life, you know.
một sự kiện rất là
So my father
một
at that
sự kiện
time
rất là
was
quan trọng khi
serving
mà
as the
cha tôi
executive officer to
là một sĩ
the
quan trong quân đội của miền
equivalent
Nam,
of
miền
U.S.
Nam Việt
Marine
Nam,
Corps
một
Commandant,
đồng minh của nước
the
Mỹ
South
vào
Vietnam
thời
Commandant,
đó.
Lieutenant
Khi
General Lương Xuân Việt
khi quân đội
at
của
that
Nam Việt
point,
Nam
and I
đã thất
remember
bại trong
him,
một trong một chiến
you
đấu
know,
đó
out
thì
conducting medical circulation with the general, and coming back, you know, very dejected. And he's typically a very upbeat and a very positive person. And I remember him coming back, and I actually overheard him telling my mom that the country was doomed and there's no way we were going to win the war. So
thì
shortly
cha tôi đã
thereafter,
nói với gia đình
you know,
là
he
không có
started
cách nào
a
mà
series of family meetings. And you know, my
chúng
sisters,
ta
my
miền Nam
four
Việt Nam
oldest
đã thắng
sisters,
trong
they
cuộc chiến
were
đó, nên
my
sau
oldest two
đó
were already
thì
in college. They were
gia
just
đình
absolutely brilliant. My other two sisters attended South Vietnam's
gia
top
đình tôi,
girls'
ba
high
mẹ
school,
tôi
which
và
is Chuyên.
tôi cùng
So
với
they were
hai
all
chị
pretty
đã
brilliant in their own rights and very, very strong
đi
women
qua để
of
qua
Vietnamese
Mỹ để tị nạn.
heritage. And so they participated. I didn't get a chance to participate because I was too young, but I always made sure that I was always on the margins of these meetings. And I remember my dad resolutely wanting to go back to the Marine Division and continue to fight. And I remember for the first time, or one of the few times I actually saw my mom and my sisters pushing back on him, is that, you know, what about the family? I mean, you know, the Marine Division was spread all throughout the country, fighting for its life. And, you know, my mom is like, what worth are you in coming back to join that fight? And you're a staff guy now. What kind of authority do you think you have to be able to do that? So they fought him pretty hard on it. So they started talking about other options. The most prominent is, you know, because I was the only boy, big Catholic family as well, you know, sending me to the U.S. to live with one of his advisors ahead of time, just to try to save the family lineage there, and perhaps sending one or two of my sisters forward. But in any case, you know, at nine years of age, I just it was gut-wrenching for me to see my parents go through that. And then shortly thereafter, in April, I remember my dad coming back, and he whispered to my mom, telling her that one of his American friends wanted to facilitate our escape from Vietnam due to the deteriorating situation. And shortly thereafter, I remember roughly on the 25th or 26th of April, you know, we were told, hey, pack your stuff and only take, you know, the clothes you wear on your back and the documentation
Cái thời đó thì
that you require to leave
chúng
the
tôi
country.
chỉ
So we
lấy
did
những
exactly just that.
thứ cần thiết như
We
quần
bounced
áo,
around,
tài liệu,
you know, for a
giấy
couple
tờ
of days. I remember staying at the
để
Caravel
đi
Hotel
đàn
in
thôi, chứ không có
Saigon,
bất kỳ
and
thứ
then
gì.
we moved into the World Vision compound. Very secretive, you know, the whole time. And on the 27th of April, 1975, we ended up entering Tanzania Airport. It was extremely crowded, very small terminal, and
Thì
we,
vào ngày 30
you know,
tháng 4
we were outside
gia
on
đình
the
chúng
hot
tôi
tarmac
đi
for
lên
it
máy
seems
bay
like for an
và
eternity.
trong có rất nhiều đám đông,
Just
thì
waiting
gia
our
đình chúng
turn
tôi đã lên máy
to
bay
be
để đi tị
processed,
nạn.
and the next day, kind of all hell broke loose. You know, we started receiving mortars and artillery fire. we can hear, small arms fire all throughout the outside of the airport. And then a couple of enemy aircraft came in and bombed the airstrip. And I remember my dad, we were all cowering, lying on our bellies. My dad said to stay down. And he was on his knee, and he says, kids, don't worry, you'll be okay. You're missing out on a monumental historical event. And he was so calm that it made a lot of us feel safer. But in any case, rounds are still coming in. People close by were getting hit, and I remember their screams and cries, and I was scared to death, and I was laying on my belly, and as a 9-year-old, you do probably the only thing a 9-year-old could have done at that moment was I recited my Hail Marys,
điểm đó thì tôi chỉ mới 9 tuổi.
I recited my prayers.
Thì
so we got through the day.
Thời điểm đó thì tôi cũng không suy nghĩ gì, tôi chỉ làm theo lời cha tôi.
There was a great degradation of hope because we were told that the U.S. decided to stop all fixed-wing operations, so we were just waiting for the inevitable, for communist forces to start storming the airport gates and then whatever we had coming to us. And then that afternoon, I saw my dad talking to a young Marine, U.S. Marine captain and RTO, who was still the security force there. And after that, he instructed, all the men in the area to start clearing a landing zone. And he said Marine helicopters were coming to the rescue. And that afternoon, we saw a beautiful formation of CH-53s come in to the airport. And we waited our turn. The next day, we received a lift assignment. They were flying seat outs, and it was 60 Vietnamese per load, and we got on the aircraft. I remember flying out. I remember tracers coming up at us. I remember the door runners shooting back. And 30 minutes later, we landed. And a lot of Vietnamese on board started, to tell other people that, hey, they're probably just dropping us off on some island right off the coast of Vietnam. And I believed that because I didn't know any better. So when we came off, to tail the aircraft there, it was really a magnificent sight. And I asked my dad, where we're at. And I remember him telling me, we are embarked aboard the USS Hancock. And I said, what does that mean? And he says, it means that nothing in the world can harm you now. And again, that was, for me, a very monumental occasion, a very monumental event in my life that I hold true to this day. And in a lot of ways, that whole experience on the USS Hancock has motivated me to serve and to follow my father's footsteps.
Wow. Sir, we spoke previously, and I mentioned to you that my family background is very similar. I'm the only one of 5 children who was born in the United States. Both of my parents were boat people. And so as you were telling your story, I couldn't help but remember being woken up in the middle of the night because my dad, who was in the South Vietnamese Army, he had night terrors very late into his life. And I remember being woken up by them. These experiences that you had, as a soldier, as a young lieutenant, as an infantryman, were you able to draw upon some of these experiences, these memories, your father's stories, to help you in your soldiering?
Ông có thể kể lại những cái kinh nghiệm nào của ông để trở thành ông làm của ông trở thành một lính không?
My hero. Unfortunately he passed in 1997, but
cha tôi là một trong những thần tượng của tôi, là một người anh hùng của tôi, nhưng mà không may là ông đã qua đời.
The leader that I am today. I watch him throughout the war. I watch him
ảnh hưởng đến tôi và trở thành làm cho tôi là một người hình tượng cho tôi trở thành một người lính, là một người lãnh đạo về quân sự như vậy.
He got a degree in English literature from the University of Saigon, so he's intellectually he was very gifted. So I was able to benefit a lot from that, right?
Tôi học
So that's
hỏi
first and
được rất
foremost.
nhiều
It's the
và có nhiều
leadership
lợi ích
piece.
từ học
He's
hỏi đến
always,
ba tôi.
keen on, leaders being able to lead from the front, be able to share the same hardship with your soldiers. And he always told me, treat your soldiers like your sons and daughters. So I've lived by those ethos. So first and foremost, it really has shaped who I am as a leader. In terms of being there and seeing it all, and actually having gone through these traumatic events, it just made me stronger as a person. People say, well, when I was a lieutenant, well, Ranger School is tough, and I went through it. I'm like, well, maybe it's not all that tough, right? Maybe there are things in life that are tougher. So it's taught me that. It's taught me to have great compassion for people. I will tell you, for those who know me, so I'm a pretty tough leader. I mean, I demand pretty high standards, but I also have deep loyalty and compassion. And those are the values that I had before coming in the Army. Of course, all the institutional values that have been inculcated in me as well. But I think diversity and experience,
Tôi tin là
gives the Army
những cái kinh
strength.
nghiệm về đa chủng tộc đã giúp cho tôi trong
Sir,
những
thank you very much. I'm going to shift
trong đường
gears
về
just a
huấn
little
luyện.
bit and ask you something that I think is being discussed a lot in the civilian sector, and should definitely be discussed here in our profession as well. And it's about equality and inclusion at the top. I know representation is important. I see it in the way that my small children play, the dolls that they choose. They always choose the ones that look like them. When you came through the ranks, did you see diversity at the top? Was there someone that looked like you or had similar experiences that you could go to for mentorship? Did you question whether there was a ceiling for you, and how did you navigate that?
Ông có tin rằng sự
That's a great
dạng trong
question
chủng
that
tộc là quan trọng
sometimes
trong
I still
quân
ask
ngũ
myself
không?
that today. And I would tell you very honestly that we were not very diverse when I first came into the Army. And I can speak not only
Tôi xin
for
nói rằng
myself,
là
but for my
cái sự đa
some
dạng
of
trong
my
quân ngũ
colleagues who are
trong
African
quân
American,
ngũ lúc mà thời tôi
as
lúc
well
mà
as
tôi vào quân
Hispanic,
ngũ thì
right?
nó không
In
có
the
thực sự
infantry
là
and in the
đa dạng
combat
như
arms in
lúc
general,
mà tôi tham
we
gia.
were not very diverse back then. I would argue that there's great room for improvement right now because within those populations, including Asian Americans, not very diverse.
Người
I
gốc
found
Á rất là ít.
myself, I think for that first year in command until General Rich Kim arrived the second year in 82nd Airborne as only one of 27 battalion commander of Asian descent. And I think we had one African American, so not very well represented. Carl Alex, he became a two-star. He's a great friend of mine. And when I became a brigade commander, it's sort of similar. When I was younger, maybe I was too naive. I just kind of never worried about that. I was just like, hey, just put your nose to the grinder, do your best, and always excel just to achieve the average, right? I always felt like I had to outperform folks in everything that I do. And some of my friends, were talking about, hey, how can we help the force become more diverse? And I was too naive to even worry about that. I said, hey, why don't we just do a job and everything will work out? It doesn't work like that, right? In order to be successful, you need a lot of support. You need mentorship. You need advocacy. And I felt, and I'm not bitter about any of this stuff, right? I mean, I'm sitting here as a two-star general, but as I look back, after I had taken brigade command, I'm looking for opportunities to open doors for others, who may not have the same opportunity. I'm not just talking about Asian Americans, because a lot of infantry officers that I mentor now just happens to be, African American. And so I try to do that. I also try to do mentorship for female officers that also, require some assistance in terms of, their charting a path to a successful career in some of these branches that may not include a lot of women. So as I look back, I realized that even in my younger days that there were doors that were open for some of my peers and advocacy that they had and mentorship that they had pretty much at every turn, including now, that I didn't have. But I think in order to correct that, I think we it's going to take a little time, and we got to go back, early on, right? Because it takes years to create, a great officer or NCO. So I think we got to start with recruiting. We got to start with retention and trying to attract the top talent into the field. And I think
Và
there's a
chúng tôi
lot
đã
of
huấn
work that needs
luyện
to be
cũng
done
như
right
là
now,
đào
specific
tạo
to
những cái người
to Asian
giỏi
American.
để vào
Do I
quân
think
đội.
there's a top ceiling? No, I do not think so, because to me, if you ask me, hey, should we think outside the box? I'm like, what box, right?
Nếu
But
mà bạn hỏi tôi
but at the same
là
time, I
nên
will tell
nghĩ
you,
ngoài
it's very, very
ngoài nghĩ
tough. The
hơn
ceiling is very
trong cái hộp
high, and
thì
the ceiling is tough, and the
nên nghĩ
path
về
to
cái gì?
get there may be tougher for some of us than others, and we got to do that through a holistic approach, and I would welcome any ideas, and I would contribute to that effort if the opportunities exist to do that.
Sir, thank you. I'm just going to ask you directly. There's a small cohort. I don't think that there are many, but in recent days and months, their voices have been a little louder. And the question that they ask is, does diversity matter? And of course, the Army's program, the Army's belief, and the Army's
đặt câu hỏi
values.
là có phải
We
sự
say
đa dạng
consistently.
chủng tộc
I think we've been
có
consistent,
quan trọng không trong
in saying that
quân đội,
diversity is a strength.
và sự đa dạng
Can
là
you
sức
tell
mạnh.
us why? Why is diversity something that is needed in our
Và
Army?
Ngài có thể giải thích cho chúng tôi biết tại
I
sao sự đa dạng
I
là
think
quan
there's
trọng như
great
thế.
strength in diversity, right?
Tôi có thể nói
As I
là
stated
sự đa dạng
before,
chủng tộc trong
diversity
quân đội rất là
allows
quan
you
trọng
to
và
have
sức mạnh của
diversity
chúng
of
ta.
culture and diversity of thought. It just makes us stronger. I'll give you one quick example. We had a
Cho
team
bạn
building
một
session last
ví
week,
dụ.
right? And this little vignette I just grabbed last week is a perfect example of why diversity in culture and thought is important. So we were split up into small groups, and we were doing actually our campaign support plan offsite, and we had some team building events. And one of the team building events consists of groups getting together and pictorially demonstrate how to make toast, right? And I think some of you all may be exposed to this exercise. I think it's a great exercise, but the whole process involves people individually coming up with ways to do that, and then as a group coming back and picking from individuals to create a better group effort. So in the end, that's the story. And for most people, I was watching the outbrief, and for most people, they're just pictorially, going way back from how you harvest the wheat, and then how you make flour, and then how you make bread, and then how you put it in the toaster. For this one individual, who I think the world of, his name is Kevin Phillips, and he had no toaster in his pictorial depiction. And he showed just putting sandwiches on a frying pan, and that's how he made toast. And I said, why did you do that? And he said, sir, my family grew up in Kenya, and we don't make toast using that toaster. But the whole point behind that is the end results were the same, right? It was just a different way of getting there. And I think it's good for our Army to have that. And again, I'm very critical about sometimes about initiative for diversity, because I think it has to go beyond words. It has to go
Tôi nghĩ là
beyond
sự đa dạng
programs. I think the
chủng tộc
programs
rất là
are
quan
good,
trọng trong quân
but
đội.
it has to kind of be inculcated into who we are as an institution,
Vì trong
right?
nhiều trường hợp sự đa dạng rất là quan trọng.
Subconsciously. So that way, it's not something that you try hard to do. It should come natural. And I'll give you another example that I'm living today. And I'm not touting his General Will. You've got all this stuff figured out, right? So my front office, right? I'm obviously Vietnamese American. My secretary is a Japanese local national. All right. My executive assistant is a 60-year-old white male. My aide-de-camp is African American. My executive assistant, enlisted executive assistant, is African American, and he's gay. And then my commo sergeant is a staff sergeant, and
Tôi
he's
có thể nói
Caucasian.
một số lãnh đạo cấp trên của tôi như là người
Pretty well diverse.
cả
And the reason
Mỹ
I'm
đen
proud of
và
that
Mỹ
is
trắng,
I didn't go
gốc
into this job
Á,
saying,
rồi
well, I'm going to pick one
cả
of
người
each,
Mỹ đen và
right?
người đồng tính.
My whole thing was, my philosophy for diversity is don't do diversity for diversity's sake. But when all things are equal, right? When all things are equal, you got to give
Và tôi có
diversity
thể
a
nói
chance.
là
And that's been my
ờ,
approach to leadership this whole
sự đa
time,
dạng và chủng tộc
right?
rất là quan trọng và
And
sự
if you look
công
at
bằng,
my
sự
front
đối
office
đãi công
staff,
bằng
it's like, wow, maybe I
và
have embraced
đối xử
those
công bằng,
ethos,
quyền lợi công bằng, tất
and
cả
maybe
những
we're
người
doing
trong quân
something
đội
right here
là rất
because
quan trọng.
it's a
Bất kỳ
very
bạn
high
từ chủng
performing
tộc
front
nào,
office, and the staff
sáng
will
tiến
tell
từ
you
như
that.
nhau.
So again, it's a very myopic, very small sample of what that looks like. But I think people got to start embracing this stuff and live by it instead of just preaching, you know, and or waiting until May to start talking about this stuff and celebrate for the month of May instead of just living it throughout the whole year, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That being said, you know, with your background as the first Vietnamese American general in the United States Army,
Với
do
cái
you, and I'm sure with many other firsts as well, do you feel
nghề
like there's
nghiệp
an extra
và
weight on your
cái
shoulders?
cấp
You
bậc
know,
của
you've
ông là người
inspired
tướng
and
sao đầu
continue
tiên
to inspire a
gốc
whole
Việt
community
là cấp cao nhất người
of
Việt
Asian
có.
Americans and non-Asian Americans for that matter. How does that make you feel?
Thì ông cảm giác như thế nào?
Yeah, I didn't really starting to realize that until I was a battalion commander, very low profile, and I was in New Orleans doing Hurricane Katrina as the DRF-1 for 82nd Airborne, and I was trying to convince a Vietnam vet to leave a flooded area and try to extract him because he had a bunch of medical issues and stuff like that, and he needed the help. And that ended up on the front page of LA Times. I didn't know that because I was still in the mission there in New Orleans. And I that's the first time where I started to get notoriety because, you know, very famous writer of Vietnamese descent, Mr. Anh Đình Quang Thái, wrote an article in Vietnamese, and he basically attests to the fact that he was so proud to see this young Vietnamese American, you know, on the leading edge of our national defense and actually out there helping people. And he didn't know, you know, we had a Vietnamese American in such an important position. And so I knew immediately then that I was representing something much bigger than just, you know, myself and my soldiers and my unit.
Tôi nghĩ
And after
tôi
that, you know, we had
tôi nhận là
starting to
tôi
get a
không
lot
những là
of
một
attention in the
đại diện
Vietnamese
cho
community. And I didn't think
một
much of it besides the
người
fact
gốc
that
Việt
it was kind of my duty to,
đứng đầu trong hàng
you
ngũ
know, to
tướng gốc Việt.
provide that outlet for
Cũng
strategic
cao nhất
outreach
tôi
and
đại
be
diện
able
cho
to
một người
communicate to a very
cho cộng
important
đồng người Việt.
sector
Tôi tự hào về điều đó.
of our country. But you know, recently I've been getting a lot of emails from young Vietnamese Americans and other Asian
Gần đây thì
Americans
tôi
who
gặp rất nhiều
actually
email những người
have
Mỹ
told
gốc
me
Việt
that
đã hỏi tôi là
they joined because I've inspired them to do so.
họ nói là họ
Right, so
muốn gia
so
nhập quân đội
yes, I
vì
mean
họ
you do
ngưỡng mộ
carry
tôi.
some weight on your shoulders to be able to represent at all times, but I welcome the challenge, you know,
Và
and
tôi
I'm
nói
ready
là
for
các
it.
bạn được chào đón để thử thách đó và hãy gia nhập quân đội.
Well, we're lucky to have you, sir. Going back to your NPR interview, toward the end, you talked about wanting to go back to Vietnam and perhaps finding your roots and getting some closure. Have you had time to make it back?
Thì ông có bao giờ về
I've
Việt
made
Nam
it
chưa?
back one time, but I was in official capacity.
Đó là về
So I couldn't really do
một
much. I
lần.
was actually in Hanoi,
Và
but I do want to
trong
go
chuyến đó là
back,
tôi
and
đã
I
đi
do
về
want to, you know, have
thi
the
hành công vụ
opportunity to take my kids back because all three of them
và tôi
were born
triển khai
here,
đến Hà Nội
and
công việc
just
về
you know, because of COVID and everything else,
công việc.
has not been possible.
Và gần đây
my parents,
có một cái chuyến đi
I think I was
về
maybe
sắp tới nhưng mà vì Covid thì không mới đi được.
12 years old when my parents went back for the first time. I think the borders had just reopened, and you know, my dad would have never confessed it to me, but my mom told me that you know, when he went back for the first time and got off the plane as a Viet Kieu, as a Vietnamese American, just the tears and the weight and the emotion that shed as he returned. I've never been able to shake that memory. I'm glad that my mom was able to share that with me. You know, thanks for being so candid and open with us. This next question's it's a little difficult to answer, I think, but we'd be missing the point, and we'd be remiss, I think, if I didn't bring it up. There have obviously been reports and news and videos surfacing of Asian hate cases.
Câu hỏi
Especially
kế tiếp là câu
you
hỏi
know,
hơi
a
tương
very
đối khó
tragic
về
one in
sự
Georgia.
thù ghét người châu Á.
How does that make you feel? And you know, is there something that we should be doing to help address this? Are there conversations that we need
Thì
to be having?
ông cảm thấy cái nào về điều đó, về sự
Yes,
thù ghét
certainly we have
chất độc về châu
we
Á?
have to have the conversation, and this is absolutely something that we need to address. You know, we've been
Rõ ràng
having
điều
in the
này
Army some
là
very
điều mà
uncomfortable
chúng ta cần
conversations
phải
to
đưa ra và
tackle,
để
you know,
giải quyết
I
về
would
vấn đề này.
call harmful behaviors, whether it's suicide, sexual assault, sexual harassment, or racism. Right? Each comes with a
Những điều về
different
phân biệt
set
chủng
of
tộc rồi
solutions. And I would
thù ghét.
say, you know, for me, I mean, you know, I'm deeply hurt watching some of that stuff. But what I would say is I don't have the totality of the analysis to address, you know, the issue of hate crime. I mean, it's out there. It would be naive for us not to think so. But they come in different form, you know, and for me, I think in order to address the totality of the issues, we need to have a comprehensive approach towards it. Because, you know, so hate crime, in my estimation, probably at one extreme, probably not as prominent, but there are other issues that we need to tackle as well, right? It's something, for example, I would say, and some of you may have experienced this, Pete, and you may have seen it yourself. I would, I'm not sure if I'm using the right term because I'm not, you know, school trained in any of this stuff, right? But I would say something as lame as, you know, systemic bias, for example. If you're in an organization or in a company whereby, you know, you work as hard as this other person, and when all things are equal, right, you don't get the nod because diversity is not the number one thing in their mind, but they decide to choose the other person because maybe they believe that you're that good Asian, right? Or you're not going to say anything. You're just going to continue to do your job. You're going to remain loyal. And it was the easier choice for them to make. So I see that happens, you know, in different institutions. So the other thing I would say is the institutional inequality that you see, right? You look at some of the academic institutions, select ones where Asian Americans have to score roughly 15% more higher than the rest to be able to get in. I think all those things need to be addressed at the same time and comprehensively, right? And I think we need to do a better job at having a campaign that actually addresses those things, because without knowing the crux of the issues, right? We're just trying to fix symptoms right now. It seems like to me in a lot of ways, and you got to fix the problem instead of the symptoms.
Giải quyết cái vấn đề đó và
Sir, thank you.
người châu Á có những châu Á có những cái quyền công bằng, có những cơ hội công bằng.
Just as a quick reminder to our audience, if you have questions for Major General Luong, you can drop those in the comment section, and we'll try to get to them before the end of our discussion. But I do have a personal question that I wanted to ask, and it's always fascinating when I get an opportunity to talk to senior Army leaders. So over the years, I've come to realize many successful people have very disciplined routines, whether it's in the morning or night. Is there something that you do that's part of your routine, part of your personal discipline, that's helped you stay focused or stay prepared over the
years? Điều gì làm cho ông cảm thấy ông
those who know me well would guess that I'm gonna put in a plug for good PT, right? That constitutes, you know, I have a slide that says things that require no talent, and good PT is something that you do every day. But I think for me is I'm pretty proud of the fact that I'm able to maintain very good balance. I try to have dinner with my family each night when I'm not deployed or when I'm not doing something extremely important, and then reading. I read ravenously. I think everybody should read. I think it not only opens up your mind, but it exposes you to new ideas, and and just new ways of thinking, and maybe something that you may not even agree with. But I think it's intellectual discourse. It's a great thing, and that's how people keep themselves sharpened each day. I don't spend a lot of time doing it, but I think about 30 minutes each night, is good.
Sir, thank you. Yeah, when I get to PT on my own, I've been able to. I used to listen to rock music to kind of get me amped up for the PT, but I've since switched to podcasts and audiobooks. So maybe that's 2 in 1. Maybe I'm ahead of the game on this.
Yeah, rock music is fine too.
Từ đó chắc là tốt hơn vừa nghe nhạc vừa
All
tập thể
right,
dục.
sir. Thank you for the tip. We're going to change things up again. We're going to have a little fun to end things. I'm going to ask you just a series of questions, and if you could please give me the first answer that pops into your head.
Đây là một câu hỏi rất
Here
là
we
quan
go.
trọng.
Favorite duty station.
Xin vui lòng trả lời ngay.
I would say Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Airborne. We just lost half our audience right there from me saying that.
It's okay.
Most recent show or movie you watched?
Yeah, I saw The Age of the Samurai on Netflix. I highly recommend it. I mean, it's a very intriguing part of Japanese history there in the 1500s.
Favorite book?
Trong những chương trình tôi rất thích.
I would say Once an Eagle,
cuốn sách nào
because
thích đọc nhất?
I make a lot of my officers read that. It's a great book about leadership. It's pretty thick though.
Cuốn sách mà tôi học.
The rank you wore when you had the most fun in the army?
I would say battalion commander, arguably possibly company commander, but battalion command is really the first time where you can actually influence and shape policy and have the authority to do a lot of things for people.
Và tôi có nhiều cơ hội
làm Vietnamese coffee or Starbucks?
Vietnamese coffee all day.
Ông thích loại cà phê nào? Tôi thích loại cà phê Việt Nam.
Mac or PC?
Bảo tôi uống cà phê Việt Nam suốt ngày.
Truck or sedan?
Sedan.
Beach vacation or exploring the city?
Chuyến du lịch là lớn nhất. Biển.
Your favorite ACFT event?
Sprint drag carry, because it breaks a lot of people down.
Sir, run or ruck?
Ruck.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Cảm ơn ngài đã chia sẻ câu chuyện của ngài đối với chúng tôi.
Specifically those in the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, and to many others of all cultures and ethnicities. I just want to thank you and give you the opportunity to end today's virtual engagement with any closing comments that you might have.
Yeah, no, I just want to extend my gratitude to all those who have made a difference in my career. And I know some are watching out there. I owe you a great debt of gratitude. Also very thankful to our nation, right? I tell folks all the time, we're not perfect, right? But it's still the best nation in the world, and I strongly believe in that, and I hope you do too. And hats off to our institution. We talk about diversity, and we talk about some of the things that we're working on in the Army to improve our institution and going forward. But it's a great institution that I've been a part of, and it's been a privilege for me. And thank you for dialing in, everybody. Stay safe, and I do hope that our nation is on path to recovery from this coronavirus.
Amen. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you everyone for joining us today.